Okay, guys, it looks like Cami P has actually muted himself instead of introducing the show. There he goes.
Hey, everybody, another episode of Hustle and Grind. We appreciate everybody joining. Sorry, guys. It's can you hear me or am I delayed?
You are a little bit delayed, so let's move on, you guys. Thank you for joining us tonight for Hustle and Grind. I'm Joe from Joe Madden Sports. We have a great guest tonight, Tony Finn from Wager Talk. He's coming in here to talk some NBA with us. We're going to talk about tonight's games, what he's liking coming up for the next round, you guys. You want to stay tuned for this show. So without delay, let's introduce Tony Finn from Wager Talk. Hey, Tony.
Hey, great to be here. I hope I'm not delayed and you can hear me okay.
I can hear you perfect. You're not delayed at all. You're all good. How are you doing tonight? I'm
doing great. It's a good day. You know the mantra. It's a good day when I wake up. It's a damn good day when I wake up. I have another chance to do all the things that I'm good at, which are probably not what people would expect somebody to want to do. But here we are.
Absolutely. Well, I think you're fantastic at what you do. So let's talk some NBA for tonight. We have the Atlanta Hawks, Philadelphia 76ers going at it right now. I know the Phillies are up by, 22 points at the half here. What were you thinking for this game? Were you expecting Philly to be up so much?
Well, I thought if they were smart and they were well coached and they understood the mess that they executed in Game 4 in Atlanta, that yes, they would be. And in the truth, I did about an hour-long show this afternoon, and the whole discussion was that game that Philly essentially here it is, Joe, and that's you have a team that in the last 17 minutes of the game, you have your best player miss 13 shots, which weren't taken in the paint. This is a Philly team that had dominated since the first half of Game 1. They had dominated in the paint. That's all they have to do really is get it in the paint. And this isn't a great Atlanta Hawks defense. So what they did after having an 18-point lead in the first half or the second quarter of last game was they have a center who's about 12 feet. I mean, they have a point guard who's about 12 feet, right? And he's being defended by a backcourt that's 5 feet. And he took one shot in 17 minutes, the final 17 minutes, and was 1 for 5 from the free throw line, which is his Achilles. Everyone knows that therapy is probably in order for him as far as free throws go. The same goes for the Greek Freak as well. They seem to, a guy that makes 70% during the regular season can't hit a free throw when the team needs him to. So that I think that applies to Simmons. I hope he gets over that someday. But what you see today was you saw Embiid start the game 8 for 8 from the floor. Yeah. One shot from beyond the arc, which Joel, I covered Joel when he was in college. Much different player now. More outspoken. He was meek and mild. It was really the first basketball he'd ever played. He was a soccer player, if you can believe that, a 7-foot soccer player.
Yeah. I did not know he was a soccer player. Wow.
7-foot soccer player.
Wow.
So
what a target on that field, right? Look for the tall guy.
Right? No doubt. But everything's going according to plan. They've shot well. That's what you have to do really to beat Atlanta here. I thought in this series, all they had to do was defend at a pedestrian level. This is a great defensive team. They finally decided to put Simmons on Young and get the ball out of his hands to some degree. And they had, after the first half of Game 1, like I said, dominated the paint. They for some reason, Coach, and I put as much blame on the coach, really on Doc Rivers, for not basically cornering these guys and saying, listen, the next time I see you, Joel, take a shot from the three-point line, you're fined, or you're benched, or you're going to have to run 100 laps after practice next time. And it didn't happen. So you could see from the tip-off, Joel, this game was going to be much different. And the score now in the second half, 11 minutes ago in the third, 62-40. And I don't anticipate anything like last week or Monday night happening. Consider Philadelphia up 3-2 going back to Atlanta.
Absolutely. What do you think on this total? We had a total of 224 when the game started. Do you think it's going to hit that over? You know, we've got 102 points right now.
Right. I don't.
Yeah.
Well, I don't believe it'll hit that total. Not if Philadelphia is smart. They're at this point in time up 20 right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say they should change their game plan right now or change what got them up 20. But when we get in the fourth quarter, if they're not using clock, making sure they're taking high percentage shots, and not being at that point in time, not still up 20, not being concerned about the score as much as the clock is their friend, not the scoreboard. So I'm going to say it's going to be a stretch. I didn't think last night's game would get over the total either. I think I had 221 in that, and went to it got over even after a very low scoring first half too.
Absolutely. It's surprising the risks these teams will take in that second half when they really shouldn't and should manage their clock. So I'm with you. I think Philadelphia will slow down this game and make sure they manage their clock and keep this win tonight. I'm really hoping they do. Let's talk about the next game. We've got the LA Clippers and the Utah Jazz. Now the Clippers are given 8 points going onto the court here tonight. The series is tied at 2-2, and we have a total of 220. Do you have any leans on this game?
I do. I have a very strong opinion, in fact, on this game. And
what I want to hear.
Did some shows this morning where there were some contrary opinions, which makes for a good show. You know, not everyone doesn't agree. So here's what I'll start with. You had a game 4 where both George and Kawhi and Leonard had dominated. Really, it's the first time since I don't remember what it was, but since the ABA and the NBA merged, where two players on the same team had consecutive games of 30 points or more in back-to-back playoff games. I think Leonard in Game 3 had 34, George had 31. They both had 31 in Game 4. Then we hear the story. Then we hear after the game. I listened. I knew that Leonard actually left with about 4 minutes to go in that game. They had the game in hand and were able to sit him. And even though Utah had narrowed that gap late, I think 2.5 minutes to go, Joe, when it was a 10-point, they didn't return Leonard. After the game in the presser, they asked Leonard, "How's the knee?" This is what he said: "I'm good. Next question." That right there told me that he wasn't good.
Exactly. He didn't want to talk about it.
No, he did not. So he gets up, and Coach Lou gets on, and they ask him essentially, "How's everybody's health? How's Leonard's knee? Are they okay?" And he said, and his almost verbatim, "Yes, I think so." And then I remember saying, "I think everybody's pretty good," which also said, "I'm not certain." So, and I give them a pass for that. They don't have to tell us. They don't have to tell us anything. But in this situation, we learned what? We learned when I saw the line of this game, and I knew that there might be a question about Kawhi. I didn't release it because then I'm releasing a 1.5 or a 2 when I know it's probably not going to be that if they announce that Kawhi is out. And they do such. They don't announce Kawhi is out for this game. They give us the story. They give us the situation, and he's possibly, even if they made it past Utah, got to Salt Lake, upset Utah tonight, and found their way to the Western Conference Finals, he's probably not going to play in that either. Or again, if it's actually an ACL. So what happens though? This is what happens. The line moves, Joe. The line moves, and I think justifiably so. And so the storyline this morning for us is, and they moved to 7. Let's just call it. They opened it, the line. They moved to 7, and it was a 2 or 2.5. So let's say that what they're saying to us is that Kawhi is worth 4.5 points.
And he absolutely is.
And he absolutely is, without question. In fact, I think this team, he's probably worth more. And so when I said that, I got a lot of questions. And they said, "How can you say that? A quarterback is barely worth 6." I said, well, it's a small sample size, a 2-year sample size. But I believe this Clippers team is not very good without Kawhi. With Kawhi and with George, this is a good team. George gets, Kawhi draws an awful lot of attention. So everyone else on this team is better because of Kawhi. And that includes George. When Kawhi doesn't play and George is playing as the number one, this team hasn't been very good. They're 11-9 straight up. They don't cover the spread. The margin of victory is very small. And in truth, I went back and researched some net ratings. And the net ratings, if I give you net ratings, I'm going to pull them so I don't mess this up. But lineups featuring both Kawhi and George have been dominant. They have a plus 15.6 net rating.
Wow.
And with Leonard and no George, just over 15, almost the same. With George and no Kawhi, they're virtually they're a plus 0.3, which makes them an average NBA team. That's the net rate. If you're a zero, you're an average team.
Yeah.
Average team. So that's a regular season numbers. That doesn't. This is a different animal. It's a different animal in the playoffs. The officiating's different. Everything is different. In game 1 and game 2 of this series in Salt Lake, let's even give them a little bit of a nudge, an edge nudge, because of the tough 7-game series they had against Dallas. They came in and were a little toasted, a little tired. And they didn't lose by much. If you look at the final scores, it's a little bit deceiving. I think it was 10 or it was less, 6-3. That Utah escaped. In those 2 games, Kawhi was the leading scorer in game 2, and he had 21 after that Dallas in game 1. He's not there tonight. If they're an average NBA team, which the net rating says they are, maybe they're less than that because this is regular season. If they're an average, if an NBA team, and Utah is who they are, even without Conley, what do you think the line would be during the regular season? It would be double digits for an average team.
Absolutely, it would. Absolutely.
So what I said was, you're either on the Utah Jazz tonight in this game, or you're running from this game as far and as fast as you can. And of course, we had contrary opinions, and I respect those opinions, and that's what made it fun. But I passionately believe that this series is over. It's done. No Kawhi, no win.
Absolutely. So you see the Jazz going on to play the Suns then?
I do. And that's another story too in itself, isn't it, with Chris Paul?
Yeah. Absolutely. How do you think that series will look? Well, are you thinking this is going to be a long battle, or do you think this is going to be quick over and done?
Well, we would have to, if what's the situation? Really, I made 5 calls today. The guys, I went to school there. I have a lot of contacts in the Valley of the Sun. And they also won't tell us whether he's been vaccinated. So they have a different outline for safety and protocol for vaccinated players as they do for unvaccinated players. I'm going to assume Chris Paul is vaccinated, and the best case scenario is he's back for game 1, that he'll clear the safety and protocol that's required by the NBA. And he might be a little rusty, maybe because he's sitting on his rear end, not doing anything. but that's better than not having him. And without Chris Paul, you guys, one of the things that comes to play in tournament games, in postseason games, is they didn't give the Suns. First off, a lot of teams did not give the Suns the due I thought they deserved, because they're young, not too much playoff experience, especially with their leading scorer Devin Booker never being in a playoff game period. But Chris Paul is underappreciated. I think he has 47 assists in that series. I think he has 47 some assists and 5 turnovers. When you value possessions, when you value the ball, you're always going to be in touch with the other team, which means you're always going to be in the game. It makes them dangerous because they're getting great play from their big Ayton, who's young. Booker's doing what he's supposed to do, and their I'll just call it their secondary pitches. We'll make it a baseball term. Playing. They are spot on. They're on the black. They're doing everything they need to do. And it was Denver had some holes. Without Murray, they were. I didn't think they had too much of a chance. They would have had to have a very poor performance from Paul and Booker, and of course the Joker would have had to been great.
Absolutely.
The Joker was great, but
he's always great.
He's always great, and we could have a whole show on him too.
We definitely could next time.
But here's the deal: their secondary pitches, their players, their second rotation couldn't match up to what Phoenix brought to the floor. And what do we see? we really saw 4 blowouts. In truth, really, I mean, there was a game that was close, and there was some games late that Denver, you thought maybe they had a chance, and it just again got away from them. And without Murray, they just didn't have. Murray would have created a matchup issue for the Suns that they did not have, even with the return. Even with the return of some injured that they didn't have for most of the second half of the season, being Barton the 3. So.
Absolutely. So what would we be looking at if Chris Paul comes back and he isn't vaccinated?
If he's not vaccinated, I believe if he's vaccinated, I think he'll be back for game 1.
Yeah.
If he's not vaccinated and he has contracted COVID, then a lot of it has to do with how everybody's different, right? Everybody handled this differently. I know people who had it that never knew they had it, and whether they were
asymptomatic. Yeah,
exactly. And then some who it really hit them hard. It really hit them hard, and that would be without Chris Paul. Listen, whoever wins this series, which I think is going to be Utah, without Chris Paul, they have very, very little chance against that space and pace scheme that Quinn Snyder runs. They could play better defense, and they're doing this without Conley. Conley will be back, and with Conley, they're not a better defensive team. They're a better offensive team, believe it or not. They picked up Conley from Memphis because he was known for hanging his hat on a defensive rack. Being that guy. He's not at his age right now. In fact, when he's running the pick and roll. With this Utah offense and Mitchell's playing the true number 2, they're big. The big man averages, or he shoots about 82% from the floor. Without Conley, he shoots 50% from the floor. That's how important Conley is to that inside-outside game, and that's how much better they are offensively. They're never going to be the way they run, the scheme they run now, which is now the NBA, video NBA that we live in. That's what we live in. 3-point shots, the skill set. Stupid good that 7-footers can do what they can do from beyond this arc, and if you have to guard 4 guys that can shoot 3-point shots, which is what Utah does, what they have, they're tough out.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's incredible what a couple players will do for a team being in or out. Let's talk about the Milwaukee Bucks Brooklyn Nets series. Now they're going into game 6. The Nets are up by 1. It's a 3-2 game. Any lean on this? Do you think the Nets are going to come out and finish it off in the next game, or are you looking for the Bucks to put up a fight?
Well, this is the one that cost me yesterday. I never thought this, in quick and in brief, so I don't run over time here.
Yeah.
You remember when they opened this at game 1, the total was roughly 240. I think it closed at 241.
Yes.
And it came in 20 points short of the total. So the bookmakers make an adjustment. That total is 236 or 237 in game 2. Another 20 points under the total. They go to game 3, they make their biggest adjustment, right? They go down to 232, and I'm guessing it's a neighborhood because I don't have those numbers.
It was right around there, yeah.
86-83 final score.
I couldn't believe that score. I was like, what the heck is happening in this game?
So what do? Well, we find out that now it's going to be the Durant, and my other brother Durant show, and. That's all, I did some shows yesterday and people kept saying this is not all about Durant. He's not the one. It is all about Durant. How Durant plays, so go the team. How Durant goes, so go Brooklyn. So I don't know what to say other than I think you saw what happened early in that game yesterday. They were down, they were behind, they looked bad, they looked beaten, Joe. And then Durant finds his mojo, and by game's end, Harden was a liability. It's obvious he was a liability. He's not healthy.
Yeah, he shouldn't have been put on the court.
No, right. But he did distract. He was like an injured wide receiver that they used as a decoy.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Yeah, that's exactly what he was.
Right. It is. And Durant scores almost 50, right? 49.
Yeah.
Plays. And at the end of the game, here's what I think about this game. And at the end of the game, the man that he is, and there's not I'm too old. I was out of that game of interviewing players by the time the Greek Freak came on the scene. But I thought it was just it touched me a little bit that a guy that's an MVP candidate, that is considered the best player, one of the best 5 players in the world, said, look what happened. This is why KD is the best player in the world. That's what he said. And it's the absolute truth. He's a guy who can actually defend if asked to do so, and can defend all 5 positions on top of that, because of his size. But Brooklyn still, I'm still not confident in Brooklyn. They're going back to Milwaukee now, right? Up 3-2. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Right. Yeah.
And if Milwaukee wins this game, Joe, Katie bar the door. It's one of those games where I trust a couple things. I trust that the coaching staff with Milwaukee and who they were mentored by will make some adjustments that'll make it that if they do have the lead that they had in that game 5 in Brooklyn, that they would win. I quit watching this game, Joe. I really believe when I saw KD in the first 8 to 10, 12 minutes of that game that I wasn't interested in watching. I had some other things to do, some work to do, and I don't watch a lot of games live. I watch them all edited, so I can watch, like in football, no huddles, no commercials. I can watch a game in 30 minutes, right?
Exactly.
I was going to do that. Then I looked at the final score and I said, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me that they not only won this game, but that KD had almost 50 points against a Bucks defense that's not a pushover. They're not a pushover. They are a pace and space and pace team too. They can score. We've seen that many times. But this is a team that wants to play defense, that has to play defense, mostly because if they match up against a team that can guard the 3-point line and present a brick wall in the lane for the Freak, then much like Miami did last year, not this year.
Not this year.
It presents a problem for them. So I'm excited. I'm really listen. I think it's been a great series. All these have been really good series. Even the Suns sweeping Denver was a good series. It was good to see that Phoenix was not going to play into what the media said was a great regular season team, and they could not possibly hang in the Western Conference during the postseason. We shall see.
Absolutely. I couldn't believe the media was saying that. I was like, what are you talking about? But they love to portray that and have that underdog come out as well. It gets ratings. So I think that's where a lot of that was coming from. Well, Tony, it was an absolute pleasure having you on tonight. Do you want to remind everyone where they can find you?
They can find me, as I mentioned last week, if they watch, you can find me. It's Wager Talk and Wager Talk only. I do quite a few shows. This one with some with the Sports Grid, some on XM, and you can find all that schedule at wagertalk.com. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that you can find me at any pub within a mile of my house. Come by and buy me a beer, please.
Absolutely. Everyone, you go find him in a mile of his house and make sure you check him out at Wager Talk. Again, Tony, it was an absolute pleasure having you on tonight, and I hope to have you on again.
Thanks, Joe. Have a great week.
Have a fantastic